Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sleepy Science Podcast, tracing the whisper of the first human voice. Tonight, we drift way back into a world without words. The air is heavy, warm, and scented with crushed ferns. Trees creak above you in a dense, shadowed forest. A creature scurries across the leaf litter. Somewhere in the distance, an early human ancestor crouches beside a fireless clearing, silently chewing. There are no names, no greetings, no language yet, just glances, movements, and perhaps the low murmur of a sound that means stay. In this world, you can't say, I'm hungry, or come here. You have no idea what you is yet. There are no vowels, no verbs, no bedtime podcasts, just breath and body. And also, you probably wouldn't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and what time it is where you are right now. I love seeing how far these sleepy stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge forward on bare feet through an ancient savanna. The sun is just tipping over the horizon, bathing the land in a dusty amber glow. Around you, others of your kind grunt softly, not with words, but with throat sounds that hint at mood or danger or interest. One carries a stick, another plucks a fruit. A third points toward the grass. You are not a modern human yet, not quite. Maybe Homo habilis, or an earlier species still clinging to both tree and ground. Your brain is growing, but you don't know that. Your world is entirely present tense, and so is your communication. Historians and evolutionary biologists still argue whether these early hominins used sound for anything more than warning barks or mating calls. Was there proto-language? Just sharp, simple syllables to alert, attract, or alarm? Or was it mostly silent, just glances, touches, and careful, practiced movements? Here's a fringe tidbit. Some researchers believe that before spoken words, humans evolved to mimic each other's breathing and heartbeat patterns as a way of syncing in groups. Imagine that entire communities quietly matching each other's rhythm just to feel safe, like a prehistoric ASMR session. But right now, your vocal cords haven't yet earned their badge of evolution. They exist, sure, but they're more tuned for survival than storytelling. If you try to sing, you'll probably cough. If you try to shout, it's raw and primal. No one's giving TED Talks in the Pleistocene. Still, the world around you is listening. Insects hiss, mammals bark, even trees whisper in the wind. You, soft-bellied and social, are starting to realize that sound is power, and power is survival. Picture yourself watching an elder of your group. She moves her hand in a spiral, then grunts a low, repeated tone. You don't know what she means, but your body responds. That spiral motion paired with the sound may someday become a symbol, maybe a word, maybe an idea. Fast forward a few thousand years, though time is meaningless in a sleepy story. Your species changes, you walk straighter, your jaw reshapes. Your throat slowly lengthens. There's more space in your skull for resonance. You don't know it yet, but your descendants will someday speak of love, war, mathematics, and pizza toppings. All because deep in this ancient silence, something is beginning to hum. There's something strangely cozy about this early world. The lack of language isn't frustrating, it's peaceful. There's no bickering, no small talk, no deadlines. If someone doesn't like your vibe, they just don't share their berry stash. No subtweets, no exes texting at midnight. In this soundless world, you start to rely on every other sense. Smell tells you who's nearby. Touch signals closeness. Sight helps you survive. And slowly, over tens of thousands of years, sound begins to matter more. A soft huff through the nose becomes a question. A clipped click of the tongue becomes disagreement. A gentle throat roll means comfort. You begin layering feeling into breath. This section of your journey is all about possibilities. Nothing is certain. But there's one shared truth. Your voice, even in its earliest form, is a result of need, chance, and quiet evolution. It didn't explode into being. It whispered its way here. And as you settle deeper into this timeline, you realize that speaking wasn't the beginning. Listening was. You sit now, legs tucked beneath you on cool, packed earth. The air smells of damp moss and distant smoke, though fire itself is still more mystery than mastery. Around you, your clan, or let's say your troop, shares the morning's quiet. No one talks. Not yet. But your face is busy. Your lips purse, twitch, pull sideways. Your brow furrows. You sniff loudly at a nearby root, then grunt. The one beside you mirrors the sniff, then turns away. You've just had a full conversation, one without words, but rich with meaning. That's the magic of the mouth before language. Your lips, cheeks, tongue, and breath are tools, just not verbal ones. Not yet. Biologists agree that the evolution of the human face was about more than just looking cuter than a saber-toothed cat. Those tiny muscles around the mouth and eyes gave you the ability to express. A raised eyebrow, a curled lip, a sharp exhale, they all meant something. They still do. Just try surviving modern life without side eyes or awkward smiles. Mainstream science tells us that Homo habilis, emerging around 2.4 million years ago, likely used these facial muscles for communication long before they strung together anything like a sentence. Their mouths made noises, yes, but those noises had no grammar, no structure. Think of it more like beatboxing without rhythm or purpose. And here's the kicker. Some fringe theories suggest that kissing, not talking, may have come first. No, really. Some researchers hypothesize that lip-to-lip contact might have evolved to help babies bond with their mothers, or even to detect chemical signals, like ancient breath-based Bluetooth. It's weird, it's soft, it's science-ish. You, though, aren't puckering up just yet. Your mouth is busy tasting tubers, not whispering poetry, but something's shifting, because one thing has started to happen. Grunts. Ah yes, the original emoji. A grunt could mean danger, or come here, or do not, under any circumstances, eat that glowing mushroom. You vary the tone, length, and breath. It's not speech, but it's getting closer. Grunts are the prequel to verbs. The really fascinating part? These early noises weren't just reactive. They were intentional, purposeful. You didn't just yelp because you stubbed your toe, you grunted at someone to share the experience. Like the prehistoric version of subtweeting your pain. Historians still argue whether these sounds were unique to individuals or shared across groups. Was there a universal grunt for look out across regions? Or did every family have its own flavor of throat-clearing alarm? There's no fossil record of grunts, thank goodness, so we can only guess, but here's something surprisingly sweet. Studies of modern primates suggest that their vocalizations are shaped by social context. In other words, monkeys gossip, and our ancestors likely did too. Imagine a group of Australopithecus sitting around, not talking, but making soft, pointed sounds about who stole whose berry pile. And you? You're starting to experiment. Your lips form rounder shapes. You try a it feels good. The group doesn't laugh at you. One person mimics it, another tilts their head. Maybe you've just invented the first pre-word of comfort, or maybe you've just discovered humming. There's something poetic about this stage in our evolutionary story. It's not about perfection, it's about trial and error. You're learning not just how to speak, but how to be heard. That's different and deeper. Your face becomes a theater of micro-expressions. You don't even know it. But every eyebrow twitch, every lip curl, every nostril flare, they're all rehearsals for language yet to come. Now here's a fun image. Some scientists believe that as faces became more expressive, our brains evolved to interpret them faster, like ancient real-time facial recognition software. That means your ancestors spent most of their day just staring at each other, interpreting every flinch, every breath. No pressure. The night falls. A nearby animal lets out a low growl. You grunt softly. The others freeze. You all understand, even without a word, time to go. Your mouth has spoken, in its own way, and as you move silently through the brush, your lips, cheeks, and tongue still play their early role-guiding breath, shaping sound, preparing for a future where whispers might become words. But for now, you sleep in silence, with a face full of stories no one can yet say out loud. You wake to a new kind of quiet. It's not the hush of predators lurking, or the stillness of windless dawn. This quiet has depth. It's filled with potential. Your body shifts, stretches, and without thinking, you let out a long, low groan. And just like that, your throat reminds you it's changing. Tonight, we descend literally into one of the most curious steps in human vocal evolution, the dropping of the larynx. Your larynx or voice box is the small organ in your throat that helps produce sound. In other mammals like chimps or dogs, it sits high in the neck. High placement keeps the airways safe during eating and drinking. That's a smart design. But you, strange ancient creature that you are, begin to break the rules. Your species' larynx starts to drop lower in the throat. And that single anatomical change will unlock something miraculous and mildly dangerous. Because here's the trade-off. You gain the ability to make a wider range of sounds, but you also increase your chances of choking on literally anything. Soup, mushrooms, pride. Historians agree that this physical adaptation, this risky throat reshuffling, was essential to the rise of spoken language. With a lower larynx, your ancestors could now manipulate pitch and vowel sounds more subtly. Your mouth becomes a musical instrument, and like all early musicians, you're still learning the scales. There's a fun theory that infants are born with their larynxes still high, like chimps. Then, as babies grow, the larynx descends and speech begins. It's like evolution rehearses itself every time a baby grows up. A soft biological encore of a million-year-old performance. But here's the fringe twist. Some researchers argue that certain aquatic mammals like whales also have descended larynxes, and they sing. Does that mean your voice shares an evolutionary secret with humpback whale? Possibly. Singing ancestors, not just poetic, potentially true. Now back to you, crouched near a shallow stream, sipping from cupped hands. You've noticed something new. When you call out, the sound vibrates more. It rolls through your throat differently. Others in your group stop and look your way. You're not just heard, you are understood. Not with words, but with feeling, with tone. And tone, dear listener, is the start of meaning. Imagine two ancient humans. One lets out a sharp, high-pitched squeak while pointing at a bush. The other uses the same oral, but low and soft. One means danger. The other, tasty. That's the power of tone in early vocal communication. It's the proto-version of sarcasm. Nice rock you've got there. Was it nice? Was it ironic? We'll never know. Historians still argue whether the larynx dropped before humans started stringing meaningful syllables together, or if the descent came because we needed to express more. It's one of evolution's great chicken or egg dilemmas, only with slightly more coughing. There's something gentle and strange about picturing a group of hominins sitting around, adjusting their posture, making noises into the evening air, eyeing this new instrument lodged in their throats. Like amateur flutists, they're discovering tone, pitch, rhythm. And somewhere in that twilight moment, a pattern forms. A grunt becomes a call becomes a signal becomes something that feels like language. Let's not rush, though. You still can't say please, or I love you, or can I borrow your sharp rock? But your breath now carries depth, emotion, direction, story. The sky above you shifts. The stars blink awake. Someone beside you hums not quite a tune, but a vibration. You hum back. Congratulations. You've just participated in one of the earliest dialogues, and all because your voice box decided to live a little lower. Later, much later, poets and singers and tired parents reading bedtime stories will thank your larynx for this. But for now, you simply lie back in the grass, throat humming softly, and let the new sounds echo into the night. You yawn under the pale light of a rising moon. Not because you're bored, but because your body, like your language, is evolving, softly, slowly, one muscle at a time. Tonight's spotlight shines on a rather underrated hero of human speech, the tongue. Not exactly glamorous, is it? Not as famous as the brain or as poetic as the heart. But without your tongue, the strong, flexible, overly moist muscle curled up in your mouth, language would have never gotten off the ground. Or off the uvula, if we're being technical. Imagine you're trying to make a sound. Any sound. La, B, R, or even mm. Each of these relies on tongue shape, pressure, and position. The tongue is your personal sound sculptor, curling and flattening and flapping in split-second choreography. Mainstream anatomy tells us that human tongues are uniquely agile compared to those of other primates. Your ancient cousins, the chimps and bonobos, can make a few expressive sounds, but their tongues just can't twist and flick like yours. Poor things, all grunts, no grammar. You, on the other hand, possess a tongue that's surprisingly gymnastic. And here's the fun part. No one fully agrees why it evolved this way. Some scholars think your ancestors' increasingly complex diets forced the tongue to adapt, not just for speech, but to better manipulate food. You try chewing root vegetables with no molars and a lazy tongue. It's a workout. Speech may have started with supper. Other theories drift further into fringe territory. There's an argument oddly specific that human tongue agility developed as part of social grooming rituals, via shared singing or rhythmic chanting. Basically, language began as a team sport for the mouth. And here's where it gets delightfully awkward. Tongues are also involved in taste, swallowing, kissing, spitting, and emotional expressions. They are multitasking champions. But for speech, they're essential. Every vowel, every consonant, every whispered shh, crafted in partnership with your tongue. Tonight, you sit near a small fire. You watch another member of your group try something new. She makes a soft clicking noise, not with her teeth, but with her tongue against the roof of her mouth. The group pauses. It's strange, new, fascinating. Then someone else tries it. Then you. What's being shared isn't a word exactly. It's a sound with meaning, a shared sound. You're not quite speaking, but you're no longer silent either. Historians still debate when humans began consciously using the tongue for deliberate sound formation. Some fossil evidence suggests that tongue control, like hand control, co-evolved with brain expansion. In other words, you didn't just wake up one day with a polyglot's tongue, it grew into its job. Here's a little-known tidbit. One of the reasons early human skulls became flatter and more tucked in over time might have been to make room for tongue mobility. Your jaw shrank. Your teeth straightened. And your tongue? It moved like a shadow dancer. You try shaping different mouth positions. A ba, a da, a ga. These aren't full words yet, but they're the syllables that your great-great-great etc. grandchildren will someday use to say their first baby words. And the tongue, it remembers. One of the strangest things about your ancient tongue is that it learns by doing. Even now, modern children figure out how to speak by flapping theirs around, wildly copying sounds they hear, even if they don't understand them. Your ancestors were no different. Your early vocal play was messy, noisy, and probably hilarious to observe. You glance toward the trees. A nightbird calls. You mimic it, just for fun. Someone giggles, a soft, breathy sound made possible by the coordinated magic of tongue and breath. You smile, not knowing that laughter is a form of communication too. A pre-language bonding spell. The fire crackles. Someone hums. You answer with a higher note. They respond. Your tongue is finding its role, not as a weapon, not as a tool, but as a bridge from your thoughts to someone else's understanding. And that, in the sleepy dark of your ancient night, feels like something sacred. A breeze rolls across the plain as the fire's warmth fades into ash. You press your back against a smooth stone and another breath, another vibration in your chest. But this time, when you speak, or whatever your ancestors might call it, something curious happens. The sound echoes back. Your skull, now subtly reshaped over hundreds of thousands of years, doesn't just contain your brain anymore. It's becoming an instrument in its own right, a resonating chamber for your emerging voice. Let's explore that noggin of yours. Compared to earlier species, your cranium is rounder, more spacious, and tilted just right to support both a growing brain and a flexible vocal system. That's no accident. The evolution of your skull is deeply tangled with your ability to make and understand sound. Mainstream paleoanthropology suggests that as early humans stood more upright and jaws shrank to accommodate smaller cooked meals, the entire structure of the face had to adapt. Smaller faces meant more vertical space for the larynx and tongue to do their work. The pharynx, that open chamber above your vocal cords, got longer, And a longer pharynx means a richer sound palette. Think about that. You didn't just evolve a bigger brain for thinking, you evolved a better head for humming. Now here's a weird little detail. The human sinuses, those oddly shaped air pockets that sometimes make you sound like a kazoo during allergy season, may have also played a role in vocal resonance. The theory? These empty chambers helped early speech sound fuller, more emotionally expressive, a prehistoric surround sound system built into your face. Still, scholars argue whether this was an evolutionary accident or an intentional adaptation. Did your skull change for speech? Or did speech just take advantage of the new architecture? The answer, as usual, is we're not quite sure, but we're whispering our way toward understanding. Back to you now. You're crouched in a shallow cave, sheltering from the wind. The walls around you are smooth, curved, and close. You hum, and the sound bounces back at just the right pitch. Others join in. For the first time, you notice how different each voice feels. One is soft and breathy. Another, sharp and quick. Yours is low, almost sleepy. No one has taught you this, but your skull and ears are learning together. That's the magic of the human vocal system. Feedback. You don't just speak into the void, you listen to yourself, adjust, and refine. The chamber of your skull teaches you about volume, pitch, even emotion, without a single grammar lesson. Let's throw in a fringe theory for flavor. A small circle of researchers believes that early humans may have chosen cave dwellings partly for their acoustic properties. In other words, your ancestors liked caves that made their voices sound cooler. You can imagine the first teenager finding just the right corner to yell into like an echo mic. You shift slightly, your jaw clicks. That's another big change. The jaw itself has become shorter and more curved over time, allowing for more precise tongue and lip movements. Every bone in your head, it seems, is playing a part in your vocal awakening. And here's the cozy part. Even now, thousands of years later, your voice still carries the shape of that ancient skull. The reason you can whisper gently into a microphone or mumble dramatically into a pillow is because your ancestors sculpted a sound box into their faces, one bone at a time. Somewhere behind you, a child lets out a rhythmic babble. Not words, just playful noise. You respond with a laugh. The laugh echoes back, warm and full. It feels like language, but gentler, sleepier, less sharp. And suddenly you're not just making sound. You're sharing it, amplifying it, feeling it return. That loop send, receive, adjust is what makes human language so alive. It's not static, it's music made together. So tonight, as you lie back beneath the stars, skull resting on dry moss, you let out a soft sigh. It flows upward past your vocal cords, shaped by your tongue, boosted by your throat, and finally launched by your ancient, beautifully evolved skull. It echoes back once, twice, and you smile. You don't have a word for home yet, but this feels close. The fire has died down now, but its warmth lingers in the stone beside you. The air carries the scent of ash and bark, and a faint thrum of night insects pulses in the distance. You stir, not to speak, but to listen because something remarkable is happening across the flickering circle. Someone is making rhythm. Not music, not quite. There are no instruments, no tempo, no dance, but a steady, pulsing pattern of sound emerges. Deep hums, rising groans, a gentle throat pop followed by a rustling beat tapped on a hollow log. You all freeze for a second, then one by one others join in. Tonight, you and your people are creating something new, vocal ritual, and maybe, just maybe, shared meaning. Modern anthropology calls this moment a possible turning point in language evolution. The shift from random grunts to intentional vocal patterns. You're not just making sound, you're doing it together. Around the fire, in the safety of darkness, voices begin to mirror each other, repeat, harmonize. And rhythm? Rhythm is language's quiet cousin. Mainstream theory says early humans likely used rhythmic chanting long before they formed sentences. These patterns may have served practical roles, keeping the group in sync during foraging, calming children, warning others across a field. A repeated vocal cue is more reliable than a random shout. And around the fire, rhythm creates unity. Historians still argue whether these vocal patterns were the first step toward structured language or a parallel invention, an emotional technology used to soothe, bond, or signal danger without formal speech. Were these early chants proto-words or something more primal and early emotional code? Either way, tonight is different. You mimic the same sound 3 times. A low ho, ho, ho. It bounces off the others. Soon you're all in sync like a prehistoric band with no instruments, no name, and no Spotify deal. But the vibe? Immaculate. Here's a quirky fringe tidbit. Some researchers propose that rhythmic chanting helped regulate group heart rates and breathing. Picture this, 10 early humans humming together, their pulses slowing, their stress fading. Prehistoric breathwork. You, though, don't know anything about oxytocin or cortisol. All you know is that this feels good, safe, familiar. You glance around the group, someone taps their chest softly, then grunts twice. A rhythm, a signal. It means something. You're not sure what, but you feel it. The fire's crackle fills the gaps between your sounds. A baby squeals and is gently hushed with a rising shh sound, perhaps the most ancient calming syllable of all time. That soft shh echoes across species, across centuries. Even now we use it, a tiny human sound, timeless. Let's take a moment to marvel at what's happening here. You are, without realizing it, laying down the foundation of prosody. That's the musicality of speech. Rhythm, pitch, stress. It's how we say things, not just what we say. And prosody often communicates more than words ever could. Around this sleepy fire, there are no nouns, no verbs. But there's tone, there's pace, there's a shared understanding that fast is urgent and slow is soothing. Your brain is starting to associate sound patterns with emotion. And that's language's quiet, sleepy heartbeat. By the way, not to brag, but your brain is excellent at this. Even in its ancient form, it's already syncing with others. Matching, mirroring. That ability to detect pattern and purpose, it's what will someday make poetry possible. And right now, it's helping your group fall asleep in safety. One more fascinating theory before you doze off. Some anthropologists believe that language didn't begin during the day. It began at night around fires, in caves, under stars. In the soft dark, with less visual communication, humans turned to sound. That gentle hum of voice became the string that tethered the group together. You feel it now. Someone nearby hums again, same note, same rhythm. You echo back quietly. It's not a word, but it's a choice, a moment of shared breath in the middle of a dark world. You've made a sound that matters, and without even trying, you've taken one more step closer to speaking. You wake before the sun. The sky is still deep blue, just starting to bleed into gold, and a chill lingers in the air. You stretch, shake sleep from your limbs, and glance around. Others stir too, some quietly grooming, some gnawing on leftover roots. But no one speaks, not because there's nothing to say, but because your species still hasn't made the final leap. This is the age of gestures. Your hands, your eyes, your posture, these are your tools of expression. They were your first words, long before your throat dared to speak, and in many ways they still are. This section of your journey is all about overlap, when gesture and proto-speech lived side by side, a time when meaning was built from body and breath, not bound into grammar or syntax. Mainstream linguists widely agree that human language likely evolved out of manual gestures. That is, we pointed before we spoke. We mimed. We motioned. And those motions carried emotional weight. A raised palm could mean stop. A tap to the chest might mean me. A finger toward a tree? Look. It's not so different from what we do now, really. Have you ever tried explaining something exciting without flailing your hands like a confused windmill? Exactly. But here's the challenge. Gestures need eyes. You can only point if someone is looking. If they're turned away, or if the light is gone, your hands become useless. And that's where vocal sounds begin to take over. Around the fire, in the dark, through the fog. When vision fails, sound steps in. Historians still argue whether speech replaced gesture or merely layered on top. Did one evolve and then dominate, or did the two work together? Always. It's still a debate. But what's clear is that you, right now, are in the middle of that shift. This morning, you spot a predator's track in the mud. You crouch, trace its shape with a fingertip, then look up sharply. You grunt. Not just any grunt, a distinct one. The others hear it, turn, and immediately freeze. The combination worked. Gesture plus sound. That's communication. A fringe theory suggests that early humans developed synchronized gestures and vocalizations while hunting in groups, like a kind of silent sign language paired with breathy codes. Imagine that, creeping through brush, pointing, humming, clicking. A prehistoric SWAT team with no walkie-talkies, and your tongue, your lips, your hands. They're all working together now, the hands still led, sure, but the mouth is learning to follow, to reinforce. You don't just gesture to say, come here. You hum with it. You don't just point at danger. You hiss. These are the soft, sleepy beginnings of redundancy in communication, a feature that modern language uses all the time. We say no and shake our head, yes and nod. Your ancestors invented that combo before they even had the word yes. And here's something sweet. Babies today follow the same path. They gesture before they talk, pointing, clapping, waving. It's an ancient echo of your own evolution. Their brains are rehearsing an old performance. You shift again as the sun peaks over the horizon. A child toddles nearby and raises their arms. The gesture is universal. Lift me. You scoop them up and hum. The meaning is clear. The moment is soft. It's easy to imagine that even before speech, there were lullabies, rhythmic rocking, a hum paired with a hand, love without words. By the way, if you're wondering whether modern humans still rely on gestures, oh yes, we're talking dozens of unconscious gestures per minute, even in casual conversation. You could almost say your hands are constantly whispering on your behalf. And you? In this quiet prehistoric morning, you begin to understand that communication doesn't belong to one body part. It's a dance between limbs and lungs, fingers and tongues, posture and pitch. And even as you grunt or point or hum, you know, this is only the beginning. The body still speaks. But now the voice is growing louder. The sun now hangs higher in the sky, casting long shadows over the grasslands. Your group moves in a loose line, following worn paths between trees and streams. And as your feet press against the warm dirt, something else begins to press upward or from your chest to your throat, to your tongue. You want to say something, not just a sound, not just a grunt or a sorbet or a warning. You want to label what you see, to claim a sound and tie it softly, stubbornly to an idea. And just like that, we arrive at the next chapter of your sleepy journey. Symbolic sounds, the first names, the earliest labels, the origins of meaning itself. It's one of the most mysterious moments in our evolutionary story when a simple syllable like be or ka stopped being just a noise and started standing in for something else. A berry, a bird, a tool, a feeling. Mainstream linguists call this referential vocalization, the point where a sound becomes a stand-in for a concept. Like giving the world sticky little post-it notes, one syllable at a time. It's not vocabulary yet, not quite, but you're heading that way. You crouch and reach for a particularly juicy root. Before you pluck it, you exhale a short ha. The sound doesn't mean much, but the person behind you notices it, associates it with the motion, and makes the same sound later when they spot the same root. A connection is born. It's not a word, but it might become one. Historians still argue whether these symbolic utterances emerged first as nouns or verbs, objects, or actions. Did we label things before we describe what they did? Some say naming came first. Others insist action led the way. The truth, as usual, is probably somewhere in the foggy middle. Here's a quirky fringe idea. Some researchers propose that early humans developed sound maps of their surroundings as repeated syllables tied to locations, animals, or behaviors. Not quite a language, more like a neighborhood playlist of noises. Step on a sharp rock? Tick, hear a bird. Cha, see water? Loo. And over time, these sounds stick. Your group now uses certain noises consistently. A high E moan means caution. A low moke ha might signal food. These aren't just sounds, they're memory devices, auditory bookmarks in an increasingly complex world. And the weirdest part? Your brain is wired to do this. Modern neuroscience shows that the human mind is hungry for pattern. You remember things better when they have a label. You learn faster when a sound connects to a meaning. Even now, your brain loves rhymes, slogans, jingles, descendants of that ancient urge to name. So picture this. You're walking, and someone behind you mimics the ha you made earlier when finding a route. This time, it's intentional. Directed, you turn, you see the route, you smile, you've just participated in one of humanity's earliest acts of shared meaning. And now you begin to experiment. You try combining sounds. A ku with a la. It feels strange in your mouth, a little clunky, but someone else copies it. Maybe it catches on, maybe it vanishes. But either way, the game of language has started, not structured, not spoken in sentences, but playful, curious, symbolic. Around the fire that evening, a group member lifts a small round stone. They thump it against their chest and say a low "bo." It's nonsense, but everyone laughs. The sound feels right. The stone is now a bow. Will the name last? No one knows. But what matters is the intention. A sound has been offered to the group as a symbol and accepted. This is your first dictionary, written in echo and laughter and light. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, and though you're still more gesture than grammar, more tone than tense. But now your voice has started to carry ideas. And that, for a creature once limited to shrieks and silence, is nothing short of miraculous. As night falls, you lie back beneath the stars, lips gently parting, whispering a nonsense string of syllables just to hear them, just to feel them. You don't have a language yet, but you do have a name for that one perfect rock. And somehow that's enough. The stars shimmer like pinpricks in a blanket of charcoal. Your body is still, but your mind buzzes softly, not from fear or hunger, from possibility. The day's sounds linger in your ears, the bow for stone, the ha for root, the clicks and sighs pass between companions. They're sticking now, these sounds, holding shape, carrying weight. And so begins the most enchanting turn yet in your journey, the birth of shared memory through sound. Tonight, we explore how language doesn't just name things, it remembers them. It stores events. It holds knowledge. It passes things down across time like a whisper cupped between palms. You're not just living in the present anymore. You're beginning to narrate. Mainstream anthropology suggests that once vocal sounds became associated with meanings, it was only a matter of time before humans began linking them together to describe what happened. What's not happening now, but did happen earlier. It's the beginning of storytelling, not fiction, not fables, just shared recall. You sit by the fire, someone mimics the motion of spotting a predator. They pair it with a specific grunt in a sharp hand gesture. Another adds a short, clicking sound, a warning from earlier in the day. Then someone mimes running. There's laughter, then tension. Everyone nods. You've just witnessed a reenactment, not a full story, but a scene, a past moment, preserved and replayed. This ability to remember together is quietly revolutionary, because memory for so long was individual, trapped inside skulls. But now your memories are bleeding into others. Their voices replay your moments. Your thoughts become their warnings. And here's a fringe twist. Some evolutionary psychologists believe that storytelling evolved primarily as a survival tool. It wasn't for entertainment, it was for transmission. Where the water hides, where the lion waits, what the stars looked like before the big fire came. In this way, your voice becomes your species' first archive. But there's a second, sleepier purpose too. You tell stories to feel safe. After all, when the world outside your cave roars with wolves and wind, what better comfort than retelling a moment you survived? It's not unlike modern times, sitting in bed, whispering, "Remember that one time?" to someone you trust. The earliest lullaby wasn't sung, it was told. Historians still argue whether vocal storytelling preceded cave paintings or vice versa. Did you speak your memories before painting them? Or did the hand get there first? Either way, your voice is catching up quickly, and now your stories grow longer. You try combining sounds to show order. Bo, then ka, then ha. It's rough, no grammar yet, but there's rhythm. The events come in sequence. A stone, then danger, then food. Everyone understands. The group murmurs its approval. Someone repeats your sound string, nods. A child mimics it too badly, adorably. Laughter bubbles up. You've just witnessed your first oral tradition, a small chain of memory passed between mouths, across age tied together by nothing but breath and belief. A curious detail. Even today, in remote cultures without written language, oral storytelling is passed on with astonishing precision. Some can recite generations of knowledge, word for word. Your ancestors? They were practicing the early forms of that. Their minds weren't just remembering for themselves, they were remembering for each other. You glance at the stars, you hum a low tone. Someone joins in. You whisper a syllable. Another completes it. You've started something that might last longer than the night, longer than your footsteps, maybe even longer than your bones. Because a story, once shared, no longer belongs to just one voice. It multiplies. You yawn, stretch, curl into the warm earth. The fire pops. Somewhere nearby, the quiet murmur of breath and memory continues. And as your eyes drift shut, you realize your voice is no longer just noise. It's beginning to remember. The morning sun slips in like a whisper, gently warming the ground beneath your shoulder blades. You stir, yawn, stretch, and as your body shifts, your lips part with a soft grunt. Not from pain, not from hunger, from habit. Today, we step into one of the most subtle but powerful shifts in vocal evolution. Language as reflex. Not just survival, not just symbols, but speech as a seamless part of daily motion. Like scratching your skin, like breathing. You don't plan these sounds anymore. They emerge from your throat like echoes of thought. You hum while gathering fruit. You sigh as you squat to rest. You grunt a rhythm as you dig. These noises mean something now, even when no one answers. Mainstream linguists call this phatic communication language used not to convey content, but connection. Little sounds and phrases that maintain social bonds, like modern humans saying, huh, yeah, or even, well, before pausing. You've entered the age of conversational glue. But here's the wonder, your brain has rewired to support it. As your ancestors started linking sound with social bonds, the regions of the brain responsible for vocal control, especially Broca's and Wernicke's areas, expanded. These parts of your brain aren't just about grammar. They help you form, decode, and respond to speech, all without stopping to think. You're becoming a conversational animal. Still, historians argue whether this neural reshaping occurred before the emergence of complex speech or was driven by it. Another chicken and egg riddle. But the result? You're now able to hold fragments of dialogue, share moods, even narrate your actions out loud. A fringe theory even suggests that ancient humans evolved this inner narration, the whispering voice in your head, as a side effect of language becoming reflex. That voice you hear when you read silently or think in words? A ghost of a million spoken thoughts. Now watch yourself in this moment. You reach for a stone, you mutter, "Bo." No one is near. You didn't say it to anyone, but you said it anyway. It's comforting, familiar, a breadcrumb trail for your own mind. This is called self-directed speech, and even toddlers do it. They talk to themselves while stacking blocks or pretending to cook. Your ancestors? They were likely doing the same, only with more sticks and fewer alphabet puzzles. And here's a charming tidbit. Modern studies show that self-talk helps with memory and coordination. It's like your brain needs to hear its own thoughts aloud to believe them. Your ancient mind figured that out without needing a peer-reviewed paper. You walk now, lightly tapping a rhythm with your feet. Each step is paired with a hum, a low huh, huh, huh. It isn't a song, not yet, but it makes the work easier. It keeps your pace steady. Then, someone beside you joins in. You harmonize without planning it. This is co-regulation through sound. Your species is learning to sync emotionally, physically, vocally, just by being near each other. Speech is no longer just for facts. It's a thread, a kind of comfort blanket tossed between companions. Modern humans do this too. When food is good. Oops, when something drops. You know? Even when no one answers. It's not about information. It's about presence. The fire crackles again that night. You sit beside it, not saying much, just soft sounds. Mutters, hums, not because there's a message to send, just because silence feels strange now. Language has become your background music. And maybe that's how it was always meant to be, not a lecture or a chant or a warning, but a soft hum that says, I'm here, you're here, we're safe. You glance toward the dark beyond the trees. You don't need to shout. You just sigh. And someone, half asleep, sighs back. A wordless agreement. Another day in the slow, sleepy birth of your voice. It's well past midnight now. The fire has quieted to a faint orange glow and the air smells of damp ash and crushed grass. You lie still, chin tucked to chest, and listen. Not for danger, not for hunger, but for meaning. Because tonight you're starting to understand something bigger. That not all communication is about things. Sometimes it's about feelings. And that brings us to a new chapter of your sleepy evolution. The rise of emotional language. How your early ancestors began using sound to express more than just look, or food, or danger. They began using it for please, for I'm scared, even for I love you. Well, whatever the grunt era version of that was. Mainstream linguistic theory holds that once sounds began symbolizing objects and actions, the next great leap was internal states. That is, words and noises not tied to what you see, but to what you feel. Let's be clear, animals already communicate emotion through sound. A dog whines, a chimp shrieks, a bird sings in distress. But your ancient human ancestors? They didn't just express emotion. They began to label it, shape it, share it with intention. And that's everything. Imagine this. You're sitting near someone who lost a sibling in a predator attack. The group knows the story. They remember. But now, in the days after, that person hums a low, slow tone whenever they pass the fire. A sound of absence, of grief. No words, but everyone understands. And soon others begin to use the same tone when they feel loss, when they miss someone, when fear sits heavy in their stomach. That tone becomes more than a sound. It becomes an emotional signal, a proto-word for sorrow. Historians still argue whether emotions were first shared through mimicry, copying facial expressions and tones, or whether vocal labels came early. But what's certain is this: the moment your species began tying sound to emotion, language became personal. And here's a quiet little fringe theory. Some researchers believe lullabies were the first true songs. Vocalized emotions meant not to inform, but to soothe. A tired parent humming nonsense syllables in a pattern that calms their child. That hum? A proto-emotional word. You can almost hear it now. You watch a child cry after falling. A parent scoops them up and coos a rhythmic, ooh, ooh. The sound has no dictionary meaning, but it works. The child settles. The sound is adopted. Later, someone uses the same tone on an anxious dog. It works again. A vocabulary of comfort is forming. What you're building is the emotional grammar of a future language. Tones for worry, for joy, for surprise, for shame. Sounds that need no translation, just resonance. You begin to notice that some sounds get repeated only during certain moods. High squeals in celebration, sharp huffs in frustration. The group is tracking not just what is being shared, but how. Modern humans still do this, of course. Think of how we say "oh" in a dozen different ways. Surprised, annoyed, disappointed, delighted. Same word, different emotional packaging. Your ancestors invented that long before syntax. And just like that, your campfire becomes an emotional amplifier. One person groans softly, others chime in. The mood is gloomy, shared. Later, someone tells a story from the day, half mime, half song. A silly moment. Laughter bubbles up. The mood lifts, someone snorts. You've created a feedback loop. Sound shapes emotion, and emotion shapes sound. It's not therapy, it's not poetry, but it's the first hint of what both will become. You lean back against a warm rock, eyes half-lidded. The fire flutters. A companion lets out a soft, breathy trill, your group's version of everything's fine. You echo it. So do others. This isn't speech, not yet. But it's a promise, a shared moment that says, you feel what I feel. You're not alone. We're still here. Dawn breaks slow and pale. The world is damp with mist, and your feet press into cool, dewy grass. You walk quietly with your group, listening, not for predators, but for patterns. The sounds you make now are no longer just reactions. They are deliberate, and more importantly, they are starting to combine. Welcome to one of the softest revolutions in the story of human language. The birth of syntax, the subtle structure that turns sounds into sentences. You don't realize it yet, of course. No one's diagramming clauses on the cave wall. But your brain, it's beginning to feel the difference between beaucoup and kubo. Same sounds, different order, different meanings. Mainstream linguists agree that the emergence of syntax word order marked one of the biggest leaps in communication. It's the moment when a jumble of vocal symbols becomes a tool for describing relationships. Who did what, to whom, when, and how. And that's where you are now. You're not just naming things anymore. You're describing events. Earlier today, one of your companions held up a root and said, "Ha." Another person tapped their chest, then pointed to the root and added a second sound. Na. Ha na, my root. Na. Ha. Root me. Same pieces, different puzzles. Historians still argue whether syntax evolved suddenly as a neurological switch or gradually, like erosion shaping a riverbed. But your group's murmurs and mumbles suggest the latter. Syntax isn't arriving with a bang, it's blooming slowly, sleepily in the space between repetition and variation. And here's a delicious fringe theory. Some researchers believe gesture syntax came first, a kind of sign language with structure, which then migrated into vocal form. So before you spoke your first sentences, you may have signed about them. You walk beside a child now. They jab their finger toward the sky, grunt, oh, then tug your arm and mutter, kuh. The sounds aren't much, but you understand. Look, that bird, I want it. That's syntax. It doesn't need grammar books or conjunctions. It just needs order, a way to turn chaos into coherence. Your brain, by the way, is loving this. As modern neuroscience confirms, the human brain is obsessed with patterns. Once your ancestors started combining words, their minds began searching for structure, rules, defaults, expectations. That's why even toddlers today begin arranging words without formal instruction. Want toy? Go sleep. Same process, same brain. And back in your ancient body, it's beginning to show. Around the fire, you tell a small story. You act it out, yes, but your voice adds shape. K for danger, bo for rock, pa for fall. Your sounds stack. The group leans closer. This is the beginning of narrative syntax sequenced ideas, chained together like beads. One sound nudges the next. One breath leads into another. You're not just describing now, you're explaining. Another person joins in. They add a sound to clarify, nah, maybe, a kind of marker. Together you formed what will someday become a preposition, a little glue word. Language loves glue, and something beautiful happens in your throat. A pause, a shift in tone, the tiniest breath between two syllables. That breath? That's your punctuation. Even before writing, your species learned to use timing and rhythm to shape understanding. A longer pause means a new idea. A rising tone signals a question. A repeated word suggests importance. These patterns don't live on scrolls yet. They live in breath, in space, in the silence between your sounds. That night, your group sits quietly. Someone tells a longer story than ever before, 3 parts, with clear order and emotional tones. It's still clumsy, still full of pauses and hand gestures. But you understand, you've begun to move past what happened into why, into how, into then what. Your syntax isn't just functional, it's becoming expressive. And just like that, your voice starts to take on shape, not just of sound, but of thought. You yawn now, a soft sigh escapes your throat. Someone nearby repeats the same sound, drawn out like a sleepy ribbon. Your sentence tonight is just one breath long, but it carries meaning, it carries feeling. And most of all, it carries structure. The air tonight is heavy with warmth. Crickets hum their slow, sleepy chorus as your group circles the fire. Not just for heat, but for something softer, something new. You're here for stories. Not just reenactments, not just warnings. Tonight, you're witnessing the emergence of imagination in language, a quiet explosion that changes everything. Your species is no longer bound to the present moment. You now speak of things that never happened. This is the dawn of myth-making. Mainstream anthropologists believe that once humans could sequence events using symbolic sounds, basic syntax, and emotional tones, the leap into imagination was inevitable. We weren't just recounting the past anymore. We were inventing it. You watch now as an elder rises. Their voice is raspy, their movements deliberate. They hold a charged stick and draw shapes in the air, punctuating each motion with a grunt, a sound, a whistle. You understand none of it at first. But the tone tells you everything. This is a story. It might be about a creature that never was, a mountain that sings, a spirit that rides the wind. The details are dreamlike, hazy, embroidered with soft sounds and hand flourishes. You don't question it, you lean in. A fringe theory suggests that early myth-making served as mental rehearsal, a way to explore danger without facing it. What if the fire grew teeth? What if the river moved? Stories became simulations. And your brain, it's fine-tuned to learn through simulation. Here's the twist. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish imagined events from remembered ones. That means a well-told tale, rich in emotion and structure, teaches your mind almost as powerfully as real experience. Prehistoric bedtime stories? They were training sessions. Historians still argue whether early myths emerged first from dreams or deliberate invention. Were they visions shared upon waking or crafted during quiet reflection? Did the gods come to us in sleep or in starlit conversations? Tonight, it doesn't matter. You listen as the elder's voice rises and falls. They pantomime a bird that grows arms. They hum the sound of the moon falling into the sea. None of it happened, and yet it feels true. Because here's the secret. Truth isn't always about fact. It's about resonance. And your story brain doesn't ask, is this real? It asks, does this feel real? You glance at the youngest in your group. Their eyes are wide, their breath shallow with wonder. They will repeat this tale someday, add to it, change a sound, tweak the rhythm. The story will live longer than the fire. And here's something strangely beautiful. Every known human culture, no matter how distant, tells stories. Even cultures that never developed writing still share mythologies transmitted orally across generations, embroidered and expanded. This is your birthright, and tonight you claim it. You close your eyes and picture the bird with arms. You whisper its name, half nonsense, half awe. Someone beside you echoes it. The word ripples outward, half sung, half laughed. That bird is now real, not in the woods, but in your minds. You've entered the age of symbolic reality, where stories shape behavior, where language builds belief. And belief, that's what keeps your species together in the dark. You sleep well that night, dreaming of birds with hands and rivers that remember your name. The rains have come, soft at first, just a whisper across the leaves, but now they drum steady on the canopy above. Your group huddles beneath an overhang, skin damp, hair clinging to necks. There's little to do but wait. And so, naturally, you talk. It's not surprising anymore. When weather halts movement, your mouth picks up the pace. The idle time becomes a verbal playground. And this rainy pause marks the next phase of your language journey, the rise of small talk and social bonding through speech. You aren't discussing food or danger or stories tonight. You're murmuring simple phrases, trading rhythmic hums, chuckling at a mispronounced sound or a made-up word that tickles the ribs just right. It's not survival-based, it's not instructional, it's just connection. Mainstream evolutionary psychology suggests that speech, particularly non-essential speech, evolved as a replacement for grooming. Yes, actual hair grooming. In primates, picking through fur builds trust. But humans, too many group members, not enough fingers. So nature handed you a shortcut, language as social glue. You now talk to feel close, a muttered syllable, a repeated inside joke sound. Even shared silence, punctuated by a familiar grunt, becomes soothing. Historians still argue whether this so-called grooming gossip came before or after complex storytelling. But there's evidence that even proto-conversation snippets of emotional sound play predated structured myth. Fringe theory time. Some researchers believe that laughter itself may be one of the oldest forms of spoken bonding, older than singing, older than language rules. A breathy, involuntary signal that says, "You're safe, I like you. I'm not a threat." You feel it now. The person beside you says something silly nonsense, really. But the sound of it, unexpected, musical. You laugh, they mimic your laugh. Another person joins. It spreads like fire from wet twig to wet twig. No meaning, just mirroring, just delight. And from these puddles of vocal play, something else begins to form. Ritual speech. Certain sequences get repeated when it rains. Certain songs emerge while walking. Specific sounds follow particular gestures. You're developing not just vocabulary, but custom. Over time, these spoken rituals might evolve into greetings, goodbyes, gratitude. But for now, they're just phrases tied to moments, like flowers pressed into a diary. You lean back against the rock wall, mouth softly forming the rain chant you've made up, a four-sound loop that bounces like droplets. It means nothing, and yet everyone around you begins to hum it too. You've started a trend. In modern terms, this would be a meme. In your world, it's the earliest form of shared oral rhythm. And your brain? It lights up like lightning behind the clouds. Social speech activates reward centers. It builds trust. It makes your heart beat slower. Modern studies show that even talking to strangers for a few minutes a day boosts happiness. Your ancestors here in the rain were getting the same neurochemical gift dopamine, oxytocin, and just enough cortisol to keep things spicy. You yawn now. The fire flickers. Rain thickens. Someone beside you murmurs a made-up word, fura. You repeat it, half asleep. It becomes a blanket word for warmth. You'll use it again tomorrow, and maybe for years after. This is how language evolves, not with rules, but with repetition. Not in textbooks, but in moments like this. A huddle, a hum, a shared sound in a storm. So you sleep, cheek on stone, lips forming nonsense syllables like prayers. And whether you know it or not, your ancestors have just added another color to their voice. Rain-colored, soft-bonded, laughter-wrapped. The storm is long gone now. The air smells like moss and flint. Puddles shimmer in the low morning light, and mist clings gently to everything like a memory that refuses to fade. You walk the earth with something new in your chest. Not hunger, not fear. Something softer, something shared. And as you hum a quiet tune and your companions echo it, you realize your voice has become more than sound. It is culture now. Tonight, we trace the final stretch of your voice's first long journey, the moment when language becomes identity. A soft flag planted in air, marking your group, your thoughts, your place in the world. Every sound you utter now comes with layers, emotion, memory, tradition. You don't just name things, you frame them. You shape how others see what you see. You influence how they remember. You are no longer just describing your world, you're building it. Mainstream anthropologists define culture as a shared set of behaviors, beliefs, and symbols passed from generation to generation. And language? It is culture's bloodstream. Without it, there's no ritual, no memory, no history. Around today's fire, someone shares a tale, but not a new one. This is a retelling. The story has been told before, maybe many times, but now it's polished. Smooth like riverstone. The rhythms are practiced, the funny parts are emphasized, the sad parts slowed to a hush. You're building an oral tradition, Modern oral cultures can maintain genealogies, medicine recipes, and cosmic stories for hundreds of years, accurate to the syllable. The reason? Redundancy and ritualized phrasing. It's likely your ancestors are already inventing those very tricks: repetition, rhyme, rhythm. A fringe theory suggests that poetry might have emerged not from art, but from memory strategy. That the first rhymes weren't about beauty, they were about survival. And now your tribe has sounds that outsiders don't use. Words for rain, for fire, for your favorite root, for grief and joy and things that fly but don't eat. Language is becoming a barrier and a bridge. It separates you from strangers, but it stitches your people closer. Historians still debate whether early dialects arose from physical distance or social identity. Did groups speak differently because they were far apart or because they wanted to sound different? Either way, your group's voice is becoming its own thing, a shared fingerprint, a sleepy signature, and that has one important side effect. You are now able to imagine others. You whisper words that describe people who aren't here, who look different, who act different. Language lets you model strangers in your mind, a theory of other tribes. Your world is getting bigger. And with that expansion comes a quiet ache, the desire to be understood, not just heard, not just seen, understood. So you begin to refine your sounds. You choose clearer syllables. You slow down for the child, speed up for the elder. You pause when others seem confused. You change your voice, not for effect, but for empathy. Language has become an act of care. As the sun dips, your group gathers once more. Someone begins the usual story. This time you add a detail they forgot. Another person chuckles and makes a joke from last week's tale. The line between speaker and listener blurs. That's culture. That's voice. You curl beside the coals, breath shallow and even, lips parted just slightly. The word fura slips out again. The comfort word. It's nonsense, but everyone knows what it means. And with that sound, you sleep. The voice you carry now is ancient, unfinished, beautiful. And though it will evolve over millennia into scripts and screens and Shakespeare and TikTok, its roots are here, in your shamas, in your songs, in your stories told to firelight and rain. Now the fire fades. The stars above blink soft and slow, like they've heard this whole story before and are smiling gently with closed eyes. The night is quiet except for the low hum of insects and the breath of sleeping bodies around you. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw relax. No more words tonight. You've carried your voice across hundreds of thousands of years. You've whispered to roots and sung to birds, laughed in rain and mourned with tone. And now it's time to let the silence speak for you. Your story isn't over. It's only just begun. But for now, you've earned this pause, this peace, this soft descent into rest. Feel the ground beneath you, ancient and steady. Feel the cool air brush your skin and let go. Sleep well, little voice. You've come so far.